Okay, welcome back to Record Straight. And for the first time, we have a guest on. So welcome Steve Cannatelli from Future Artist Music. I am Christina, one half of Cartel.
And I am Anthony, I am the other half.
And Steve, say howdy.
I am Steve and I'm from Future Artist Music here in Melbourne.
Wonderful, welcome. We are so happy to have you here today because you are... We've only met very recently. It's not been like
It's only a couple of months ago.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, I think I came in and we just had a chat and then came down to Homegrown Festival. So yeah, it's been just a couple of times, I think.
Yeah,
Only a few times.
it's good. It's good to meet those people where straight away you just click and you're like, all right, yeah,
Italians.
you get me, I get you, we're good. Italians. Yeah.
The wogs. But also the alignment of our business and your business and the way that we both approach independent, emerging, grassroots artists. It's such a wonderful, it's just, we love when we find people who are similar to us because there are so many sharks in this industry, as we all know. But it's nice to know that there are other people who are trying to help benefit the independent space.
Totally. And I felt the same way when, I walked in and had a chat with you guys. It's like we're pretty much a cut from the same tree.
I agree.
Our intentions are very similar for the music community, which is great because like you said, most people are jaded. Do you know what I mean? Most people get so jaded and then they give off that energy to young people. And it's like, young people don't need jaded energy. They just need like people to be like, yes, go for it, you know?
Yeah. And yes, go for it. And also, these are the ways that you can. I think that was one of the biggest things that we wanted to get across with Cartel was there isn't just like an encouragement. It is, you can do this and here are the ways that you can do it.
It's also
and here
a
are
resource.
Here are all of the resources that we can give you to be able to do that. And we know that your company is very, very similar.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, I know that, and I'm not sure if you're the same, but, I come from an artist background. It's kind of like, all we wanted Cartel to be when we started it in 2015 was what I didn't have as an artist. It's kind of like, when I was an artist, I had so many people going, just keep trying. One day it will happen. You just need that hit kind of thing. And it was kind of like, all I really wanted was someone to sit me down and go, if you need to upskill in this area, do X, Y, and Z. Or, if you need to develop in this space, go and speak to this person or whatever it is. And I feel like that's the really good synergy between what we do and what you do. It's an actual resource. It's process. It's, upskilling rather than just doing the job on behalf of the artist. And I think that's really powerful.
Totally. I think, when I was growing up or when you guys were growing up, we had Freezer, you know what I mean? And Freezer was so instrumental to learning all of the, the little things like how to put on a show.
The fundamentals.
The fundamentals, exactly, And it's still there, but it's not really doing anything. And so similar to you guys, I was like, well, how are young people going to obtain this information? Where are they going to get their mentorship from and all of that stuff? And I mean, for full transparency, this is not anything I planned on. This all kind of came about because the band's put me in this situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it was, I mean, they felt like there was a need for it, you know what I mean? And so they were like, yo, you're now doing this. And I was like, cool, that's what we're doing.
And this is how your journey has started.
Yeah, this is how your journey's going.
That's probably a really good place to start because
take us through what you've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, like yourself, like me, your background, you've been on the road. Like I know that we've spoken and I'd kind of not complained, but kind of gone through my experience with you. And I was like, man, it just touring, just like, not that I'm complaining, it's amazing, but
it takes it out of you.
It does take it out of you and you've done double what I've done.
Maybe more.
Yeah, maybe even more than that. And it's a difficult thing to go through, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think so during COVID, I did the old vanity thing and counted my tour passes, and I haven't counted them since then. But in COVID, it was 367.
Oh man,
so,
that gives me anxiety.
And that's like over the course of like just over 20 years. So there has been a lot of touring, and the touring. How'd you say like? I think was very instrumental to me being able to build a brand.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of the time, I might have been playing, I might have been driving, I might have been tour managing, might have been doing merch. But funnily enough, merch ended up being, I think, the best thing for what I was doing because it gave the everyday person access to come speak to me at the merch desk. So I'd be on said tour and a band would come up to me and be like, hey, I heard you do this artist coaching thing. Can we book in with you? And you meet them, you get a feel for each other, and you decide whether you want to work together.
And then you sell a piece of merch. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, and then sell a piece of merch, then what do you want? So yeah, exactly. So whilst the tour managing was great, whilst playing was great, it definitely, gave me I guess you could say a platform, so to speak. I think, merch is where, I met a lot of these young upcoming kids, and they were coming up to me buying merch. And then 3 years later, they were starting their own bands and being like, hey, can we look into your coaching services? So yeah, I started touring, when was it? 2001. Cool. And I pretty much, I'll never finish touring, but as far as full time, 7 to 10 months of the year, that kind of ended, I think, about 2023. And since then, I've just been, knuckling down on the coaching and yeah.
So did the coaching side really start to develop during the COVID period, like when there was that kind of shutdown?
No, so the coaching was way, way, way before that. So back in 2013, a good friend of mine, Jaden Roy, who works at Destroyer Lines, he was managing bands. And a band that he was managing was supporting a band from the UK, I believe, called Neck Deep, a pop punk band. And the band's name that he was managing was called The Playbook. And they had they're not around anymore, but they had a really bad show. And Jaden just came up to me out of nowhere. And this was before all the coaching stuff, before any of this was ever on the table. And he was like, can you go into their rehearsal room and do something with them? I'm like, well, what do you want? Yeah, he's like, can you fix it? I'm like, what do you want me to do about it? He's like, I don't know, you got all this experience, you'll think of something. And so I was doing a Bachelor of Youth work at the time. So I basically started constructing these team building exercises, personal development exercises, along with certain fundamentals of movement around the stage. And it basically kind of developed from there. And it wasn't until the Playbook supported another international, I think it might have been the Wonder Years or something like that, a couple of months later, and their performance went from here to there. And Jaden turned to me, he's like, I reckon you got something here, bro. And I'm like, maybe we do, And so from there, Jaden was also managing Void Division, Storm the Sky, and a whole bunch of other bands there.
Cool.
And so he was like, can you go in and do what you did with the Playbook with these bands? And so I did, and it worked. And then it just rolled on from there until we got to 2018. James from Void Division was like, hey, I think you've actually got a process after 5 years of kind of putting things together. He's like, I think you've got a process now. And so me and him sat in my house for I don't know, it felt like he came over a couple of times a week for a few weeks. And I've still got the scrapbook where we were kind of figuring out the methods and the procedure of how everything could run linear. And basically we figured that out into an 8-week program. And then I put that out into the world, and the rest is history, really.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
There's so much parallel between what we do. We're more so developing on the digital side and the business side, and there's differences there. But even if we think about our services like campaign consulting, for example, it's very similar. It's
just the process
in the way that we did it and take that time to develop that. I guess it's like a standard operating procedure of what it looks like, how it would run, and how you would work with acts that are all different, that all have different personalities, different strengths, and all of that kind of stuff, but still apply it within a process that works.
Spot on, man. Exactly. I usually say to the bands, I never deviate from the process. Nobody's above the process, including myself. I'm like, that's what got other bands to where they needed to go. So there's no reason to deviate from it,
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you guys are the same. It's here's a proven method. And it's we don't need to deviate from this because this works every single time, no matter if you're a pop artist, a metalcore artist, a dance artist, whatever it may be.
Yeah. And it develops consistency at the end of the day, right?
Totally.
An artist or an act can know that they can step on stage and give a consistent performance every night. And particularly when you hit the road and it's happening every night, to be able to essentially provide that service to the punter in the room is really important.
Absolutely, man. I think as well as that, bands as well, kind of it's one thing to do a performance in the rehearsal room when you've all had a good night's sleep and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But the moment you get out on the road and you're on 3 days no sleep, what I do is I put bands through, without better use of word, I put them through hell in the rehearsal room. So when they go out on tour, everything's easy after that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you've done 5 sets with me in the space of 4 hours at full performance, one set on 2 days no sleep will feel like a breeze compared to doing 5 sets in 4 hours.
Which is wonderful. You prepare for the worst and then you give your best, which is basically what everyone should be doing, particularly independent, grassroots, emerging artists. You got to have a look at your entire process, pick what's going to be the most challenging and work on that first. And I think that that's wonderful. I really love that you can bring both your experience in the live space and touring and also your youth work experience and you've kind of molded it into something that's so unique to you. And I think that that's so wonderful just in general that you can do that, but it's something that's so unique to our industry where you need to have some kind of psychological understanding of humanity, because you dealing with artists on no sleep or dealing with an independent artist who needs to get Triple J, like those personalities should not be taken lightly.
Absolutely.
And it's wonderful that you've created that and molded that in to your service.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I think it was, how'd you say, like, again, the band's kind of appointed me this. I think with the youth work bachelor and with doing the touring, I was already kind of falling into that mentor kind of role just by being in the van, and they'd go, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And I think, even before Jaden came up to me, it was already kind of panning out that way. But the Bachelor of Youth work was absolutely instrumental to everything coming together. I usually say what I do is a combination of, what you would get team-wise in sports, and then you've got the music industry experience, and then you've got the Bachelor of Youth work that kind of pulls it all together.
Totally.
And I think if I never did that Bachelor of Youth work, I don't know if this ever would have happened, because, how'd you say it, like, terminology is a big thing, when you're speaking to young people and you're empowering. And like, how'd you say, like, in the context of art, I don't ever really believe anything's bad. It all really just comes down to the artist's intention.
Totally.
It's like if the artist's intention is to sound like the worst band in the world, and they do sound like that, well, as far as I'm concerned, they're a good band.
Yeah, they've technically done their job.
They've done their job, And so, I'm very much like you guys with your process. It's like, cool, I'm not going to implement my own ideas about your art. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not my position.
That's not your job, yeah.
Exactly. Kind of like with you guys as well, with your process, it's not really about opinions, so to speak. It's more about, hey, this is what you do and here's how we're going to heighten it,
And that's been the massive change that we've kind of, since moving into from like doing, for example, like a straight PR service for an indie act that it's not really relevant for, moving into something like a campaign consulting where it's more about upskilling the act. For a lot of the time previous to that, it was very much like we felt like we were a human handbrake. It was like, hey, just manage these expectations. It's not about the placement. It's not about the placement. It's about the process. Do you find that, how do I ask this? How do you find you go in terms of expectations when you're dealing with acts? Because I know that with a lot of what we do, is around managing expectations. I'm going to put out this single. It's the best thing I've ever done, and because of that, I will achieve X. Do you find that you get that with a lot of acts, like where, we're playing this venue, because we're playing this venue, or we've got this support show, we're then going to proceed to here? Do you get a lot of that?
Totally. And I think the first thing I usually say to artists is, let's take the word art into perspective here.
Yes.
Art is subjective, right? There's nothing that I can't promise you anything here, because I have no idea how people are going to receive this. You could drop the best song in the world at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And a lot of artists have.
And have.
And at the end of the day, it's not about the art itself. It's how you communicate that art.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about, when I work with a band, and I'm sure you guys have had this as well, one of the first things I ask them is, what is your mission statement? And then they turn around and say, well, we're actually not sure. I'm like, right. So how can you expect people to grab this if you don't even know what you're putting out into the world?
Totally.
So you need to have a thorough understanding of your art, your brand,
and who you're trying to communicate with. Like, for us, we always go, yes, wonderful that mission statement needs to be there, but also you need to have a really clear understanding of who you're trying to influence or impact and your audience and how you're going to then communicate with them.
Yeah.
And you would say the same thing. You can't thrash out a metal band for a pop audience. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, you can give it a shot and
You can try and it might
float.
convert.
Yeah,
I
that's
hope it does.
Like kind of like Electric Callboy or something like that, you know, like they've combined like, you know, well, they did a song with Baby Metal that might as well have been what was the Vanga Bosses come. Who was that by?
Oh, I don't even know.
Vanga Boys or,
Yeah,
or
The
something like
the Vega Boys.
Yeah, something
Vega
like
Boys?
that.
Something like that.
Yeah. But like
I do love that song though.
it is a great song. But yeah, basically like they combined that European style with metalcore and absolutely blew up. So there is a place for pop in heavy music and stuff like that. But again, it really comes down to, there's so many factors involved, you know,
Definitely.
like I can even just say things like, you know, don't release a summer song in winter. Do you know what I
Totally.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
don't release a downer song in the middle of summer. Don't release an upbeat song in the middle of winter. There's certain human emotions that kind of go along with certain times of the year.
Yeah.
Even if we're talking about, and this, I mean, you guys would know better than me, but, you know, releasing a song in January, unless you're on like the festival circuit, I usually find doesn't really float.
It's very hard.
Yeah, dark period's a thing that we talk to artists about very, very often. Like we, you know, at the time of filming now, it's October, and we're talking about with basically all of the artists that we're working with. Okay, how are we navigating that period between, you know, basically the start of November or the second week of December, all the way through January. Because if you're not touring, how do we remain active throughout that time without technically releasing?
Yep.
You know, or if we are going to release, having the expectations around, you know, what that will do or what that the purpose of that is really important, because there are no industry around. Everybody's on their break, and
But
everybody
even
deserves their
audiences
break.
are not receptive. Like they
No.
don't really care about
You're
new
away
music.
with your
Yeah.
family, you're
Yeah.
doing Christmas, like you're
New
not really
Year's.
concerned about what song came out that week or day or
Yeah,
whatever, you know?
totally.
There's only recently in the last little bit, Bad Bunny is the only exception to that. He dropped the summariest album in the middle. It was our summer here, but in the middle of winter over there, which is
right.
crazy. And it went so well. But the reason that happened, and a lot of independent artists can kind of learn from that, is they had a 12, 18 month plan to promote it.
And he also had the demand.
And it's also Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
So, you know, but also I think that there is a lot of emphasis on if you are going to release at all, or if you're going to play a show at all, how are we then extending that promotion, or how are we ensuring that audiences are receptive to that, regardless of whether it's the right period of time. Although, be aware of the right period of time too.
Absolutely.
I think.
Do you think? Oh, sorry.
No. I was just going to say, I think that's quite a good segue. And one of the things I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
We did. Our previous episode was about like social strategy for artists and developing fan data, emails, text messages, stuff like that, to be able to then leverage that into areas of demand. So whether it be touring or whether, you know, be certain territories to go and tour and stuff like that. We feel that developing that community within the online sphere and developing that hardcore data where a fan opts in to an artist project is essentially that proof of concept. Do you find that that's been a change recently within the industry, or is that something that was, you know, when you were having your touring experience, you know, in 01 compared to now, is that something that's changed?
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're talking about, you know, early 2000s to now, it's not even, I would say everything's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Everything's
Most
unrecognizable. Like right down from how you tour to the releases to how many people you have on a tour, right through to people even rocking up, you know, like in 01, like there was, you know, there were no mobile phones. There was, you
It's
know,
hard marketing, it's street art.
Exactly, you know, and to think like back in those days, you know, if you pulled 400 people to a show, your band was over. Do you know what I mean? Like if you pulled 400 people, you're like, that's it, we're on the way down, it's time to call it a day.
Yeah.
Now 400 people per city is a career.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I think back in those days, I mean, man, you know, I'm not kidding you, we were kids like, you know, 14, 13-year-olds playing on the weekends to most weekends to anywhere between 800 to 2,000 kids at our town hall.
Man.
Do you know what I mean? Like that was and this was, you know, through Freezer and the Push and stuff like that. And, you know, you'd have big bands that would come through your local town on the touring circuit because
Rural touring was huge.
it was
back
huge.
then.
Yeah. Even just the smaller cities in Melbourne as well. Like it wasn't even rural. It was like, you know, Dandenong, and then you would have like Berwick, or you would have, you know, Caulfield or Moorabbin and stuff like that. It wasn't.
They were their own eco centers.
Yeah, that's
it
it.
wasn't just like go to Melbourne or
yeah.
go Brunswick or whatever it is.
And that's
yeah.
how acts would promote their record, right?
Yeah.
That was the
Absolutely.
thing. It's
And
like
it would be
we put out.
consistent.
That's right. We put out a record and we tour the fuck out of it.
Legit.
You know,
Literally
we play-
everywhere they could. Do you think that that's one of the challenges and mistakes or expectations of the artist, where they don't want to play those shows? They don't want to play those now. Let's say if it's 800 to 2,000 back then, be like 80 to 100 now, just say, ish. They don't want to they're more resistant to play those shows?
I think most bands at the moment are looking for, like, they'll take the 100 cap.
Anything.
Yeah,
Right.
like I think there's this, like right now, you know, if we relate 2025 to 2001, let's say, I think, you know, there is more shows now, but less opportunity.
Yeah.
And, you
It's
know,
access,
More
right?
competition.
it's access. Yeah. I think, you know, having, like right now, I think we're in arena culture. Do you know what I mean? Everyone wants big shows and just big shows. And that's fair enough, because we had COVID, which was, we had none of that, you know? So I understand the audience wanting, you know, big shows. And I think it always goes through these cycles where like you've got arena culture and then people go, you know what, we want small intimate shows again. And then that goes on for 5 to 10 years. And then people go, all right, we've had enough of that. Let's, you know, and it just keeps going like that. But I think as well, post-COVID, there is a bigger divide. Like you've got, you know, arena stuff, and then you've got 100 cap rooms, but that international touring market of 400 cap bands can no longer, with inflation, afford to do 400 cap rooms around the world. Whereas pre-COVID, that was, you know,
The norm.
that was the norm. Like you'd have a Tuesday night and an international band with 400 people there, and it was sustainable.
It'd
But
be worth it.
it'd be worth it. But now, if a band was to come over and do 400 cap rooms from America, they would instantly, even if they sold it all out, they'd still be running at a loss. Even if they sold a decent amount of merch, they'd still be running at a loss. Like that gap between rich and poor or whatever is just, you know, it's huge now.
Yeah.
And
It's basically the Workers Club and Rod Laver Arena.
basically, exactly, spot on, man.
So
you know,
hard.
spot on.
It's so hard. It's one of the biggest challenges, I think. I don't want to speak for you, but like in the live scene that I've seen, is that there is only those two things, and then artists are finding it really, really hard to develop, because we're all, as an industry, telling them you need to build audiences, and a portion of that would be live shows. So they're now doing those kind of like acoustic strip backs at like a cafe to promote their album. But it's kind of like, where does an artist at an independent emerging level, how do they grow?
Well, I think like I described this in, you know, touring, and the way that we were touring like 10 months of the year and all of that was very much an industrial revolution thing, right?
100%.
You know, and we're now moving into the technological revolution, where basically, you know, things are changing quite dramatically, but we've still got a little bit of the old school here. We've still got a little bit of the industrial revolution here, but it's not going to be there soon enough. Like, you know, most things will be done, you know, via, I mean, even with the introduction to AI and all of that stuff. So I think, you know, thinking about what it is to be in a band or be an artist in 2025 and beyond, in order to succeed, you need to change your lens. You need to remember that like inflation is kicking everybody's backsides.
Yep.
And, you know, that you can get far more mileage off a good piece of content than you can traveling the country. Like, you know, Australia, if you're taking a full band and you're flying and hiring vans and all of that stuff, a 5-city tour, will cost you anywhere between, you know, 10 and 15,000.
Oh, easy.
Right, easy,
Yeah.
without, you know, any issue.
Without even really trying,
without even really trying, it'll cost you 10
Especially
or
if you're
15,000.
carting gear around and, you know, all of
Exactly.
that kind of
So
stuff.
expensive.
Yeah.
So if we look at that, you know, if you can, and if that's how you're building audiences in 2025, which don't get me wrong, is still a part of it. But, you know, if you can have a piece of content blow up overnight, which again, viral moments we know are few and far between. But at the same time, if you know, we're talking about dark periods.
Yeah.
There are no dark periods anymore, in my opinion. It's like, if you're not touring, you should be smashing content. And that content needs to be like relatable in the sense that people, I feel like in 2025, we're done with like the trends, right? Like the online trends,
definitely.
like people like, you know, doing a TikTok dance to something and stuff like that. Like people
Artists
don't want
buy
that.
into it anymore.
Exactly.
Well, it's all about like the punter, the listener, the ticket buyer. At the end of the day, they know what they like and they know where to find it.
Yeah.
And that's why we're not getting that. You know, like Christina and I on a Saturday night are not going, oh, let's just go for a walk down Fitzroy and see who's playing at this venue. You know, it's just not happening.
That's right.
Right. And so that exposure through live at the local level is generally around, all right, well, we're playing this venue. We need to sell the tickets, and the tickets are always going to friends and family who are supporters but not necessarily fans.
Yeah.
And then when you take that on the road, it's like, and I find that I'm having this conversation with artists a lot more frequently now around, you know, you don't play 500 shows in your local town and then automatically develop into a East Coast or national touring act like a Leveling Crash Bandicoot. It's like, how do we repeatedly touch these new parts of this market to be able to develop demand to then be able to sell tickets, you know, as opposed to in 2001, it was about, all right, let's get to Sydney. Let's play all of the regional areas of Sydney consistently because we could afford to do that, or we could, you know, it was viable to be able to do that then. Whereas now we have this little thing called the internet where we can consistently create that dialogue. We can consistently create that content, consistently create data and repeat exposure so that when we do go to Sydney, we can actually make it worth it.
Absolutely.
Or when we go to another market, we can do that as well.
What do you think are the best pieces of working content to showcase the live side of an artist? Do you think? Is it mostly rehearsal stuff? I'm asking actually genuinely because I am trying to figure out this for one of the artists that we're working with at the moment. So I really want to know, what do you think works best to build audience online?
I think, you know, all right, if we look at, I'll give an example of an artist that I know in Queensland that I believe just absolutely just is smashing the game right now, and that's an artist called Lyric.
Yeah.
Oh, I know Lyric. Yeah.
Like Lyric, basically, you know, I believe, and if I've got this wrong, Lyric, I apologize. But I believe what she did was one night she did a piece of content which was help dress me for tour. You know, she had all of these outfits and I believe she was the first one to kind of, at least in Australia, experiment with this style of engagement of content where you're basically saying to your audience, hey, be a part of this show by dressing me.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like by saying, hey, this outfit or that outfit.
Make the fan base feel like they've got ownership.
Exactly.
And I imagine too that was part of the narrative of Lyric, right? That she was always wearing nice outfits, whatever. Yeah. So it also does benefit her narrative.
Exactly. And then, you know, you see, you know, there'll be kids that are at her shows and be like, oh my God, I helped her choose that. And,
Amazing.
you know, they feel genuinely involved.
Yeah.
But Lyric went to bed one night and to my knowledge woke up the next day and she was 40,000 followers up, you know, and she did that piece of content just went viral.
One video. Wow.
Right. And just helped dress me for tour. So that was the first definitive shift. And that was probably around this time last year.
Yeah.
And that was the first definitive shift that I was like, okay, maybe people want relatable content again, as opposed to, you know, pre that.
A tour flyer.
It was, a tour flyer, or even, you know, this is the TikTok trend happening right now. Do that. And I think, you know, that just got tiresome for a lot of audiences, and a lot of audiences want something real and something they can grab a hold of and participate. I think Lyric has done a fantastic job at that. With all of her content is very much like, you know, we're the same. You know what I mean? There's no hierarchy here.
Yeah.
My audience is me and I am my audience. You know,
Which
that
is
kind of
wonderful.
thing. And so
I think that's excellent. I think to the artists listening, 3 main points that I touched, that I just got for that was make the content relatable to your audiences, make it narrative specific. So obviously have it be something that makes sense to your brand. Not everyone's going to have, get ready with me when that's not part of their brand. And then also find a way to have the audience be a part of what you're doing. And I think there are three main things that artists need to, in all pieces of their content, need to be aware of when they're creating. Would you agree?
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable.
And I think, the live kind of side of things, you see a lot of live videos out there where, people have pieced things together and stuff. And I think that's cool for digital marketing purposes and all of that. But actually posting that to the grid, I don't know if it's going to get the engagement in this day and age. I think the stuff like what Lyric has done or what other artists done, we did it with JUNO, for example, for their vinyl. We got fans to send in letters, photos of them, all of that stuff, and we placed them in the vinyl booklet.
Amazing.
And, we genuinely wanted to do that because, the fans are very important to us.
And they're part of the reason why you're building the vinyl in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, everything that we're kind of speaking about today is about access.
Yeah.
What fans ultimately want is access. And I think for an artist at a local level, it comes down to two things. Number one is getting that potential punter to discover you in the first place. Then number two, about how we're valuing them as essentially a listener or a ticket buyer once they do discover you.
Yep.
It's like, all right, what's the process of getting that fan to discover JUNO in the first place, and then getting them interested enough to want to buy a vinyl, and then making them feel a part of that vinyl process is step number three. And I think that's, live is no different. It's like, how do we get them to buy a ticket to a show? Once they're at the show, how do we make them feel like they're a part of this? I think as like a cool sign off for this, I really want to talk about the future of live. Particularly,
or future artist music.
Or future and future artist music. But what do you think in the next 2 to 3 years are going to be the most impactful changes an artist can make at a local level to take them from local to whether it be supporting on a tour to being able to headline and tour the country? And let's keep it to Australia as opposed to other markets. But
other markets are hard.
Other markets are
we're very, very different
we
here.
can do a whole nother podcast on that. But
absolutely.
What do you think is going to be the biggest impactful change that an artist can make?
Well, I mean, it depends on inflation. Inflation is a huge thing right now where, right now we're in a period where if you go on tour for 6 months in the year and you are an emerging growing artist, expect to spend anywhere between 60 and 100,000.
Oh, it's a lot of money
on that, and you will not recoup that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That will be the investment, you know? How do I say this? It's hard to know what it may look like in 2-3 years time, just based on how people are consuming music. I think, if we go back to 2020, it was all about the Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
If we're in 2025, it's all about TikTok, So I think it would be smart for artists in the future to, again, really work the online stuff, really make sure that, you can put up 10 TikToks a day. Do you know what I mean? You can do that and you don't need to move for that. And it's not going to cost you money to do that.
Totally.
And then when the right opportunities come around from you grinding on social media, at least you'll have the money there to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's more of a sure thing, right?
It's more of a sure thing. It's like, okay, cool. You've got 40,000 TikTok followers and let's say you gain that in the space of 3 months. That shows promoters that there's a demand for what you're doing, along with obviously your previous hard ticket sales and all of that kind of stuff.
Totally.
But I honestly think, if we're talking, let's say 2027, for example, I think that by then it'll be very much like 3-4 tours a year and content the rest of the year. And I think that and, getting brand deals and all of that kind of stuff will be a huge thing, or even bigger than what it is now.
So touring is a part of the artist business as opposed to the business itself.
Exactly, yeah. And again, it really goes with that shift into the technological revolution. It's like, if you can take the JUNO Play Lunch tour, for example.
Yeah.
they probably exposed themselves to about 8,000 people, you know, in a live context over that tour, right?
Amazing.
Which is great. But if you look at what a piece of content can do and the exposure, 8,000 is nothing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if you can get a piece of content that's one's getting 50,000, another one's getting 100,000, another one's getting 1 million, all of that stuff. Obviously it's in a global marketplace. Do you know what I mean? It's not just Australia, but man, the mileage you can get from that can be pretty solid.
You can also
definitely.
understand the pockets of territories where you're working. Like we have the ability to now, for an artist to understand, oh my God, this is working in the UK and it's working in the Asian market. Like 20 years ago, you'd have to go there and tour to work out whether it was actually working or not. Whereas now you can go, all right, well, you know, 45% of my fan base is in Asia. Maybe let's go do a tour over there, kind of thing, where it's actually more of a sure thing now as opposed to what it was before. But inflation kind of makes that more difficult. Australia's so far away as well. Like we were talking to a promoter yesterday on the phone and more in the dance music space. So a lot less gear, a lot, you know, they're coming with
Bringing
USBs. And whatnot. But it's like, it's very much like these guys are getting so much money going from US to Europe, sometimes Asia. Like for them to come to Australia, they're hiking up the prices because number one, they don't want to do the flight, which is a first world problem.
Yeah.
But number two, for it to be financially viable to come here, they can't just play one show. They've got to do the whole thing.
That's right.
You know?
And Perth is another international ticket in itself.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
man,
goodness.
it's basically like going to Mars. You know?
Exactly.
And they have their own infrastructure to like all of Perth and WA. It's kind of like
They've got
us
their
on
own
the
bubble.
East Coast. They have their own little thing. So really,
right.
a lot of the time they're like, we have our own artists that we're supporting, or there are people that are coming through, like that go through Bali and whatever that they're prioritizing because here our impact in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, just say, is not as impactful as it in Perth.
Exactly.
But then also for them, the challenge for those guys is breaking out of that WA market.
It's hard
because like all of the artists that I'm speaking to over there is like, how do we get over to Melbourne? And it's like, oh, we're talking to you about how we can get over there. You know, like it's kind of that great dividing range. But it's the same thing. It's like if we can create demand in another part of the territory or another territory altogether, I think that's the difference. And that's what you're talking about, content.
Yeah.
And I think it even goes beyond content. It's like, how is the artist creating dialogue?
Well,
You know,
the
how are
content
we
is the
talking to
first
people?
piece of exposure, but
Exactly.
then the second step is engagement.
And then how, off the back of that, are we gathering data
Yeah,
to then
correct.
make these people feel more aware and
Which
into
is
it.
the nurture stage.
Which
so
is
we
the
have
nurture stage.
we have three little stages. We have exposure, awareness, engagement, and nurture. I guess that would be the same for live shows as well, or any
Yeah.
of your coaching development that kind of fits into all of those different
Well, it's
categories.
exactly the same.
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same. Like, yeah, I mean, like what you guys are doing is like, how to say, pretty much in theory the same thing as what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You guys are doing it in the office. I'm doing it in the rehearsal room.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, the music industry, I think with technology pushing everything so fast, like, you know, if you ask me in 2022, what would the music industry look like in 2025? I don't think, like, there are parts of the music industry in 2025 that I would have been able to predict, but there are some parts like that I'm just like, wow, like this piece of technology that I didn't know was going to exist, that now exists, is now changed that whole narrative,
Definitely.
you know?
Oh, dude, there are so many platforms out there now that
AI is
AI on its own,
on its own is, you know, AI is it's a controversial topic and I get it. I get how a lot of people are like, this is going to, without better use of the word, fuck a lot of things. But at the same time, I will say this, it's now in the equation. It's now out there in the world.
it's here whether we
have to
like it or
work
not.
with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure out, and people probably don't want to hear this right now, but if you're going to be an artist in 2027, you've got to figure out how to pull in AI into your model.
Yeah.
Like it's as simple as that. And it doesn't need to be necessarily on the songwriting side of things or
definitely, no.
stuff like that, but it can just be in general, like, you know, whether you
Having a virtual assistant to do your pitching for you.
exactly.
Yeah, creating triggers.
Creating triggers.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing things like that. We're even going through it now with our business.
Yeah.
You know, how do we make sure that we're spending the most amount of our time being as impactful on artists as we can be, and creating systems that allow us to spend more time on that and less time on the stuff that we, you know, is potentially less impactful.
Yeah.
You know, and artists should think no differently. I think I agree. I think there's a lot of and I don't feel qualified to talk about it enough because I don't know enough about it, but there's a lot of like lawsuits going on around AI and IP and all of that kind of stuff. It does really feel like the outcome of those lawsuits and things like that are really going to shape what happens in the future of our industry. But I do think that, you know, if we look at it as a tool for what it is, and you know, it can be really like there's opportunity in it. I think we're really late as an industry to so many things. Like if we look at, you know, I grew up, you know, I'm a 90s baby. I grew up with a Walkman listening, you know, and the only exposure to music was through physical CDs and radio. And then that transitioned into, you know, the download blog era and LimeWire, and that was a fun era. And, you know, that transitioned into iTunes, and then that transitioned into streaming. And I don't know what the equivalent to live would be, but we were always late. The music industry was always late. We were incredibly late to streaming.
Yeah.
You know, and I think what AI will, hopefully we're not late to it, but, you know, what AI will allow us to do is it'll allow us to go where our listener is.
Yes.
And I think not enough artists value their listener, you know, and if we can do that, we can build. I'm going on a bit of a rant right now.
No, it's all like, I think it's, you know, it's a huge topic right now and how it all works in. Now, I will say this, when you can put out music, like I think there's two categories. I think you have AI music and then music. And I don't think they're to be put in the same.
Never the two shall meet.
Yeah. Never the two shall meet. You know what I mean? If you're looking at it like AI is going to take over music, that's not what's going to happen.
No.
People will always want to hear human beings playing something, right? In saying that, you shouldn't be able to monetize at this point in time, at least, you shouldn't be able to monetize AI music because it's not yours. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
In any stretch, it's not yours, you know? You may have had a part of making it, do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the computer has still generated it for you, you know? So I think, but in saying that, you know, and, you know, if you look at, you know, I think Suno's up to version 5 or something like that, which is the, I don't know if you guys are across Suno, but.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah. It's basically like the tool that people use to create music that is causing.
We were playing around with it a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and that's what Papa Smurf was talking about.
Yeah. So like if you look at something like Suno now, you can do things like put your song into it. So like, let's say you've got a shitty demo that you did with your band 25 years ago, right? You can now put that into Suno and
it'll create like a whole new thing.
No, not even a whole new thing. You can separate the stems, remix it. You can actually make your old stuff like good, and even if it's just for yourself.
That's
so
amazing.
It's time saving, right? It creates catalog. We speak so much about catalog, and you know, we were talking about this with like, say for example, the Mystico guys who have put out this EP, and we're talking about doing like, how do we push the older catalog from their older album? It's like, well, let's do a live version.
Yeah.
Let's A/B with tracks on the new EP that in a similar genre.
Yeah.
Let's build the catalog from the older catalog, because the catalog doesn't have a shelf life.
Yeah.
And that's where I think things like Suno can, you know, it can help, because it's like, well, you know, let's separate the stems, create an instrumental version. Let's separate the stems and create an acoustic version. Let's remix this. Let's do all that kind of.
And if nothing else, it's a creative exercise.
Yeah.
Well, it really just pushes the creative boundary, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same as ChatGPT when we're writing press releases, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Exactly.
you know,
Time saver. Thank God.
It's like, you know, like we get a campaign consulting, and like, I'm not ashamed to say it. Like, we'll use Gemini to be able to spit out all of the, spit in all of the information. It will spit out a structure. We'll then copy and paste that, and we'll rip it apart, but it still gives us the structure, because that's the longest part.
Totally.
You know,
it's kind of like, me and my housemate were talking about this. It's kind of like the introduction of the calculator, and everyone's going to get dumb at maths, right? And a lot of people are kind of like with AI, it's taking, you know, the things that you need to think about, and you no longer need to think about them. And a lot of people go, well, that's dumbing everybody down. Not necessarily. It's doing exactly what you just said. It's condensing like your time, so you've got more time to allocate to things that matter.
more
Yeah.
impactful.
And more impactful in 2025. Like, with all due respect, like, you know, if I want to know what an equation is, I'll put it into ChatGPT or I'll Google it, and people will be like, oh, but what if all that went away and we went back to pen and paper? The only way we're going back to pen and paper is if the world ends and starts again.
Meteor hits the earth, and we go back to
You know, so it's very much
hunter
about
gatherer. Yeah, I think AI is going to be the least of our problems when we're trying to start a fire to live.
Like, there's no way back to the garage. We've turned too many corners. You know what I mean?
100%.
So yeah, I think, you know, for artists listening to this, and I guess what we're getting at is like, you need time, and you're going to need a lot of it, you know, and you need money, and you're going to need a lot of it. So if these basic AI tools, you know, whether it be creating artwork, whether it be mixing your song, whether it be, you know, putting your logistics for tour together, whether all of that stuff,
copywriting, all of it,
you know, like it's going to free up your time and your money, and in a time where you need both of those things in abundance, that's where we're at.
Particularly for a self-managed artist, for an artist that's doing all of this on their own, like why would we not be seeing this as a tool?
Exactly.
You know,
that's how I see it anyways, but a lot of people watching this will probably disagree.
Oh, let us know in the comments.
Let us
if
know
you
in the
disagree.
comments.
Well, I think we wrap up. But Steve, I'm going to take something from First We Feast. This camera, this camera, this camera. Tell us a little bit of like just a snapshot of your business before we go, and what artists can learn and where they can find you and all of those things.
Yeah, totally. So I've got a company called Future Artist Music. I do development and management. You can find me at futureartistmusic.com. Basically what I do with bands is I help bands build their live show. I help bands, you know, with decision making. I also do like mediation between bands and band members, put you in contact with, you know, whatever resources you may need. So basically I've been doing this for 13 years now. Yeah, just on 13 years. And yeah, basically if you're struggling, if you don't know, you know, which direction to go in, if you don't know, you know, what your next move is, like get in touch, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And you're wonderful to talk to. And you're just a wonderful human being who actually wants the benefit of the artist. And that's really, really rare as well. So thank you for coming.
No, thank you
for
for
being
having me,
on
guys.
Record
We
Straight.
appreciate you. I can't believe it's our first guest.
Our first
This is
guest.
good.
I know,
Our
it's
guest,
wonderful.
Jerry. It's great.
What a
Thank you
great
so much,
first
I
guest to have.
It was great.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And we appreciate everyone listening. Thank you to That Creative Hub for having us in their podcast space. And we will catch everyone next time. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you guys.
Bye.